Hi, I'm Bobby Rio, and in this video, I want to share the #1 lesson about money you will ever learn and the real secret for creating multiple streams of income. Now, a quick promise. This is not a video that's going to give you some rah-rah speech about working hard. You don't get rich by working hard. In fact, a lot of times, the harder you work, the less money you make. And I'm also not going to tell you that, the secret to money is visualizing it or any of that mystical, like The Secret type woo-woo stuff. One more promise. I swear there will be no mention of 401ks or index funds or compound interest or any of that other bullshit peddled to you every single day. You will never get rich by putting money into your 401k, no matter what Tony Robbins or Susie Orman tells you. I'm going to give you practical advice, the same advice that took me from being a flat, broke 30-year-old to a millionaire by 35. So let me tell you a little story about money. And by the end of this video, you'll have the same formula that every millionaire I know has used to become financially free. So almost 17 years ago, as a 22-year-old, I just graduated from a state college with an English degree. I didn't really want to be a teacher, but that was the only career path that seemed available to me at the time. I was, a C student. I had no real skills except being a decent writer, and I like to read a lot. The dot-com bubble had been going on. It had just burst. Now, all my friends back then were getting laid off from these high-paying jobs, in tech. My roommate Jeff, who was a college dropout, he somehow managed to get a $100,000 a year tech job during the peak of the bubble. And now he was unemployed, flat broke, and he was obsessed with a little book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Maybe you read it. If you have, I'm gonna bitch slap the book because it got a lot of things right, but it left out the most important lesson. So by chance, Jeff leaves his copy of Rich Dad, Poor Dad in my room one day. The next day, I take the book with me to my job. I was working as a substitute teacher, and I devoured the entire book between class, right? Most importantly, though, I immediately understood and took its big lesson to heart. If you're not familiar with the lesson, here is the lesson. Rule number 1, rich people buy assets, poor people buy liabilities. If you want to get rich, buy assets. Now, that rule is completely wrong. I'll explain why in a minute. But as a result of that rule, I went on to purchase and partner in over 400 units of apartment buildings. I own single and multifamily houses across the country. I have a stock portfolio that I could comfortably retire on, and I'm not even 40 years old yet. So in this video series, I'm going to share some of the most valuable lessons that I've learned as an entrepreneur and as an investor, and I want to share them with you. And I just want to say that no matter where you are right now, right? Whether you're, an employee looking for your ticket out of the 9 to 5, maybe you're a business owner looking to reach that 7-figure level, or maybe you just want a better idea of, where to invest your money. This video will benefit you. Now, even if you're financially illiterate at the moment, I promise you that I'm going to explain things in a way that make it easy to get, right? Easy to get, easy to understand, and most importantly, easy to get started. And I'm going to help transform you into what my friends and I refer to as a financial adult. In this video here, I'm going to teach you what I believe is the real #1 rule of getting rich. See, I mentioned earlier that in the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I was convinced that getting rich meant buying assets. Now, after reading the book, during the next 5 years, I worked as a substitute teacher. I waited tables. I spent time as a realtor, and I even started my own house painting company. And I was taught an even more valuable lesson during that time. You don't get rich buying assets. Robert Kiyosaki was wrong. If you're not aware of what an asset is, it's anything that is converted into cash, stocks, bonds, real estate, gold, businesses. You don't ever get rich buying assets. And here's why. Because if you don't have money to begin with, you can't afford to buy enough assets to ever get rich. Point blank, right? It's a pretty simple concept and one that most people who read Rich Dad, Poor Dad run into really, really quickly. You can't buy rental properties or apartment buildings when you can barely pay your rent. It's just the way it is, right? And the amount of money you might be socking away into a 401k, while it might help you out in retirement, it will not make you rich. At least not rich while you can still enjoy it, and not in the way that we're going to be talking about in this video. So I want you to erase rule number 1 from your mental chalkboard, and I want you to write down a new rule number 1. Here it is. If you want to be rich, create assets. That right there is the secret rocket ship to wealth. And for those of you, again, unclear exactly what an asset is, let's use my definition of an asset going forward. Anything that puts a steady stream of money in your pocket. See, I wasn't able to acquire millions of dollars in assets like real estate, stocks, gold and silver by saving a portion of my paycheck and slowly, buying them. After 5 years of trying to buy assets, in 2008, while the entire country was like losing their shirts during the financial crisis, and everybody else is watching the prices of their stock and real estate plummet, I began creating my own assets. Here's what I did. I created an asset, a digital product called Make Small Talk Sexy. And then that asset began throwing off cash that allowed me to begin buying physical assets like houses and apartment buildings, right? I created Make Small Talk Sexy back in 2009, and it still generates cash flow every single day. Why I sleep, why I lie on the beach, why I spend time creating even more assets. And the houses and apartment buildings and stocks that I bought from the income generated by Make Small Talk Sexy, now they generate cash flow every single day. Why I sleep, why I lay on the beach, why I spend time creating even more assets. That is the formula right there that almost every self-made man and woman has followed to become rich. When I created my first asset in 2009, between credit cards and student loans, I was almost $40,000 in debt. I didn't have a savings account, right? My checking account was like almost always hovering around zero. I remember I had just moved in to an apartment back then with my girlfriend, and I was so broke that she actually had to pay the security deposit on our tiny new apartment, and she had to buy all the furniture. Less than 5 years later, I had sold over $5 million worth of digital programs and was generating close to $100,000 a month in income. Now here's the ultimate secret of the rich, and this is worth writing down, taping it to your fridge, reading it out loud every single day. Whatever you have to do to drill this into your mind. Step 1, create assets. Step 2, buy assets with the income they generate. I've watched friends scrimp and save for years working at a job, putting a little cash aside before finally, saving up and buying a 2-family house thinking that it's gonna make them rich. What they soon find out is that a 2-family house might put a couple extra $100 in your pocket every month. On the other hand, I spent 5 years creating assets and began generating enough income through those assets that I had created that now I could purchase hundreds of units of apartment buildings in just a few years. In fact, here's a picture of a building that I just sold. I owned this building with a group of partners, and we sold it after 2 years of owning it for $14 million. Now, these type of investments you don't even get near until you have at least $1 million in the bank. Now, because there's only so much I can explain in a video, without it getting ridiculously long, I'm hosting a free online workshop teaching a step-by-step method for creating your first digital asset. The workshop is called How to Turn Your Ideas, Interests, or Talents into Multiple Streams of Passive Income. My friend Rob Weiser and I, we're gonna actually teach you what it takes to go from just an idea, starting from scratch, to creating your first asset. If this at all interests you, right, then I recommend registering for this free online workshop that I'm hosting with my good friend Rob Weiser, who he himself has created and sold close to 100 different digital assets in the last 10 years, selling over $5 million worth of them as well. There's a couple of sessions to choose from. See, that is the true secret to becoming rich: creating assets and investing the profits into more assets. So what type of asset should you create? Well, in this free online workshop I'm hosting, I'm gonna walk you through my all-time favorite type of asset that you can create. Here's why it's the best. One, it costs almost nothing to get started. Literally nothing, right? It doesn't require overhead. It doesn't require employees. You can do it on the side. I created my first one while I was painting houses, right? I was coming home from work after a day of painting and I created this asset. The income potential is unlimited. Literally anyone can do it. If you can follow a proven method, you can do this. I'm more excited for this class than I have been for anything I've taught in years because I know the impact it can have on you if you apply what you'll learn. I also want to mention that there's a limited number of slots that the system can handle. So I suggest not only registering right now, but making sure that you show up early. Show up early for the session so you don't get blocked out. This is the same formula Rob and I, we both use to create multiple $1-million income streams. And we're gonna walk you through every single step of the process. By the time you're done with this class, you'll have a complete blueprint for creating your first digital asset that generates passive income every single month. And from that moment forward, everything in your life changes, right? Registration for the 2 sessions are open. You can register for the free class right here. There's a link. If you're ready to start creating streams of passive digital income every single day, this workshop is specifically for you.